I'm Rip, he'll come up a little late, and I'll let you go ahead and we gotta get this room done.
We gotta get this room done so we can get it back, so, all right. Well, thank you, I appreciate you. I wanted to kind of take a minute to give you a timeline of the events of an investigation, an ongoing investigation that's being conducted currently by Precinct 5's Major Offenders Division. On January 1st of this year, Harris County Precinct 5 Major Offenders Division was contacted by the Department of Family Protective Services, injured runaway who was trafficked. Investigators learned that this 16-year-old female ran away from DFPS custody on January 23rd. DFPS provided investigators with an Instagram account which also had photos of the juvenile. This Instagram account belonged to a Frank Roberts. On February 1st, investigators tracked Mr. Roberts to an apartment complex located at 1007 South Mason Road. Investigators recovered the victim at that apartment complex. The victim also at that time made an outcry that she was sexually assaulted by multiple different males. Roberts confessed to sexually assaulting the victim multiple times. He also implicated two of his friends. Roberts was then placed into custody in the Harris County Jail for sexual assault of a child. His bond was set at $30,000. He has currently bonded out. A follow-up: two friends as Adrian Lewis, Colby Daniels. Investigators learned that Lewis had also been investigated for compelling prostitution in an unrelated case. The victim met Roberts and Daniels at the Greens Point Mall. During the interview, she stated that she also met a rapper by the name of Dono. Dono had sexually assaulted her also. She said she was later sexually assaulted also by another suspect by the name of Adrian Lewis. All of the suspects drugged the victim with an assortment of drugs ranging from marijuana, Xanax, and possibly even heroin. They would house her at local hotels in the west side of Harris County, and unknown men were trafficked in and out of the room while she was drugged. This portion of the investigation is continuing at this time. Roberts also videotaped himself during one of the assaults of the victim. Adrian Lewis was arrested on April 3rd, 2019 for compelling prostitution. That was an unrelated case. It's a second-degree felony. He had a $10,000 bond placed on him. He was also arrested for trafficking of a person, which is a first-degree felony. That resulted in a $20,000 bond. He has currently bonded out. Colby Daniels was arrested on April 8th for trafficking of a person, a first-degree felony, and that held a $30,000 bond, and he has bonded out. Donovan Knight was arrested on April 11th for trafficking of a person, which is a first-degree felony, and his bond was set at $40,000. He has bonded out. Frank Roberts, the original person, was arrested on February 1st, 2019 for sexual assault of a child with a $50,000 bond. He bonded out on February 3rd. It was on April 4th there was a 2B warrant that was filed for additional charges of trafficking of a person and sexual performance by a child, which is a second-degree felony. The bond has not been set. This is where we need the help of the public. As Mr. Roberts is, we're still trying to locate him on those subsequent charges. It is believed that he was probably still in town. He does have some connections with some family members in the Baton Rouge area. So if you have any information about the whereabouts of Mr. Frank Roberts, please contact the Harris County Constable's Office, Precinct 5, 463-6666, 281-463-6666. We really appreciate your help in this case. Can I answer some questions?
How did they meet the girl? How did they come into contact?
She actually met the suspect at the Greens Point Mall.
Did they ever visit schools in the area? How do they generally, are they considered an organized group that recruits underage girls?
During the investigation so far, it appears that they are friends. I don't know if they were friends and acquaintances dealing with this type of activity. Obviously, The one individual had been arrested before with charges of compelling prostitution, so this is not something that's new to them. But there's no indication right now that they're running around as a gang doing this. They did move the suspect to several different locations, 2 different hotel rooms, which were rented out by one of the suspects, and kept her there for a couple days, and they would move her again.
Which suspect had a prior, the prior arrest?
And Adrian Lewis was arrested for compelling prostitution, which was an unrelated case.
The guy that you're still looking for has an apartment on South Mason Road in Katy. Any indication that he was running prostitution out of that apartment?
There's no indication at this time that we have been able to discover that says that this was that he was actually trafficking anyone out of that location at this time.
You had mentioned a group called High School Takeover that one of the suspects was a part of. Do you believe that there's any connection as far as the trafficking at all with the group, the High School Takeover? They would go to schools in the area, several schools in the area. They would perform. They would do pep rallies around minors. Investigators, do you believe that this was the way to get to them?
Well, of course, that is something that would be a major concern of mine as a law enforcement officer and as a parent. We don't have an indication at this time. Donovan Knight, known as Dono, was the one who was the setup man, shall we say, the hype man for these events. But it is not, we don't know if any of these other suspects actually attended these events with him, or if it was something totally separate.
And as a precaution, you did.
Yes, I'm sorry, as a precaution we contacted the schools and let them know about these events. These events actually started in February, and I through the end of May with some of the events. So all the ones that have not had their events yet, we have contacted the school districts and the law enforcement within those school districts to notify them, make them aware.
Do you know where they've performed so far?
There is a list. I don't have it present with me at this time.
How much of a concern or how widespread is the issue of child trafficking in your jurisdiction?
Well, I think it's very concerning, and I don't think it's limited to my jurisdiction. I think it's a compelling problem across the entire state and probably the entire country. It's something that is very difficult to get a grasp on and a handle on, but it's something that I think in law enforcement we all need to be very much aware of.
Forgive me if you already addressed this. Did the parents of the girl report her missing, or how did you even chase down this runaway?
We were actually contacted originally. The child was in the custody of Department of Family Protective Services when she ran away from their custody, and they contacted us after they obtained this Instagram account and some information. They turned it over to us. We were able to identify the apartment complex by some photographs that were there, and they actually located the apartment complex because it looked familiar. So as our investigators were able to see the outside of the apartment complex, it led them. They investigated within the complex, talked to the management, brought some photographs, identified, yes, that this suspect actually lives up in this apartment, and they had seen it. So that's what led us to go up there.
Was there a sex tape of the minor that the suspect wanted was involved in?
There was a videotape of Frank Roberts assaulting the minor, and the other phones that were obtained upon the arrests at this time are being downloaded and dumped at this time via a warrant. So we don't know about the other suspects on their phones, but there is some tape that Frank Roberts had videoed of himself.
Had you not found this girl, what would possibly happen?
I don't want to even think about that. She was obviously these type of predators prey on the most vulnerable in society, and I think that's what we see here.
How is she doing right now? Can you share any update on her? I mean, is she in her care? Whose care is she in right now?
She's back into the care of the state. I don't have any update on her. Family Protective Services has not updated us on her status at this time.
Do we know how she first got in contact with Robert? Do we know where or how at all?
All of the contact was made at the mall. She actually went to the mall and had communication, met Roberts, and then she actually met the other two suspects at that time at the mall. She initially went back with Roberts to his place, at which point he kept her there, assaulted her, and ultimately kicked her out of the apartment. She then walked up to the house. She then walked back over to a mall, or actually to a Walmart, and made calls of the other guys she had met at the mall. They picked her up and began continuing to traffic her.
So precisely, what do you want this message to be out to the media right now? What are you asking for?
Well, I think the message is not only to everyone in the public, but to parents, to law enforcement, to school officials, to everybody in the community, is that we need to be aware of what's going on around us. We need to be aware of these vulnerable children who have outcries, who are struggling through things, to be able to help them, to be able to intervene. And most importantly, if you see something that does not look right, if you see somebody who appears to be a juvenile who is talking with adults at a location that you don't think is right, then notify law enforcement. There's nothing wrong with us going and checking out these suspicious people or in situations just to verify, to be sure that we don't have something like this going on.
Are the school districts doing background checks on the people they invite to their schools?
I can't answer that question. I don't know what their policies are. As I said, that this particular person, Donovan, was not on their flyers. He's not on their lists of people. They may not even be aware that he is set up to be the hype man at these events. But I don't know what their policies are. But we do need the help of the public in finding Frank Roberts. We know the location. The other suspects have bonded out. Frank Roberts has 2 additional charges which have been filed on him, and we are having difficulty at this time. Like I said, it is believed that he is still local. It's possible that he has fled. He does have relatives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
What are those 2 additional charges again that he has currently?
The 2 charges for Frank Roberts, the additional charges, let me see. Sexual performance by a child, and that's for the videotaping, which is a 2nd-degree felony, and trafficking of a person, which is a 1st-degree felony. He was originally charged with the sexual assault of a child when he admitted to assaulting her initially. But it was through further and subsequent investigations that we were able to break open and find out what his involvement was in other parts of the crime.
We can ask that question in a minute. You had for me. Is that it? You can start it off, and then if you guys have any additional questions, we can walk over here.